So it's time for the top 10. And I'm going to try and keep this a bit short. So I've actually precised my notes to accommodate those that have a short attention span. Hope that's not you. I've got two albums, joint 10. The first of them is A Moon-Shaped Pool. Of course, we're looking at 2016 by Radiohead, their ninth album. And Dissident strings grace some of the cuts. Acoustic guitars, of course, provide additives, all on top of that electronic pulse. Thing is about Radiohead, for me, they're always an acquired taste. And I've listened to this album maybe 3 times. But I was really impressed yesterday. So it's jettisoned into the 10 slot. Few tracks to highlight. The opening cut, Burn the Witch, where cellists jab their bows like pitchforks. And there's glistening strings and choirs, which brings an uncomfortable vagueness to the sound. The title is a metaphor, I think, for ending relationships, as Tom York's relationship folded just prior to this album after a long lasting experience. Next up, track 5, Full Stop. I love this track. There's a shuffle beat that gets psychedelic briefly, and there's an abundance of chaos that's very rousing. The synths start to dominate, and those jangly guitars join the pace. Stretching one's imagination, you could almost hear a little bit of U2, of course, but it's a different animal entirely, the rest of it. Glass Eyes, track 6, is another great track, classical piano washed over with those strings. One could almost describe it as classical music in the 21st century. And the last of these 11 cuts that I want to mention is The Numbers. An idyllic feel here. Again, the mix of piano strings and those lead vocals distinctive by Tom will quickly lay out that feeling of a relaxed mood, which is what us music lovers seek all the time we listen, I feel. So Joint 10 is the latest album from Van Morrison called Keep Me Singing. It brings vintage chill to, of course, his distinctive repertoire. It's his 36th album, and it came 4 years after Born to Sing No Plan B, which is reviewed on my channel, a link in the description. The pace here is mostly laid back, the music drenched in jazz, R&B, blues and classy pop. He revels throughout in an elegant slow burn. His lyric themes are bittersweet, melancholy, filled with emotional and symbolic memory. And a few tracks as tasters for you. Every Time I See a River, which I think is track 2, vintage R&B blues here with Van at the helm, and there's a great guitar break in the middle. Next, Out in the Cold Again, one of Morrison's finest torch songs. If you're not familiar with what torch means, sentimental. And his delivery hovers just above a small string section and some excellent Errol Garner style piano. Probably the best track on the album and great arrangements. My third highlight, Share Your Love With Me, gospelized blues that splits the difference between 2 versions of this song, the Bobby Blue Band and the Aretha Franklin version. Got full of chortles, snarls and gospel-tinged hollers delivered by Morrison. And the last is going down to banger, a raw blues influenced by early Chicago sounds, the blues shouts and wails, and of course there's some excellent harmonica by Van. So that's a very brief summary of this album by Van Morrison, and it's at number 10 in my countdown. So to 9, this is the album by Eric Clapton, released in 2016. It's called I Still Do. No surprises here, rock and blues, Eric covers a Dylan song, Robert Johnson again, and J.J. Cale. And he's got Glyn Johns back in the production room. His recent best work had come from writing with the King, with the B.B. King collaboration, the Kareem reunion, and the Robert Johnson tribute, plus the tour with Blind Faith. And finally, that homage to J.J. Cale's passing in 2014. And this revival meeting with Johns, who produced Slow Hand, puts us in the right vein of thinking. A set of swampy blues and well-chosen covers that find fresh angles on the guitar's perennial obsessions. A few tracks to highlight then. Alabama Woman Blues opens the album. It's a Leroy Carr 1930 song that sees Carr's piano and acoustic guitar arrangement replaced with a full band-on sound, Louisiana-tinged accordion, and Clapton's raw electric guitar tracing the migration of the Chicago blues. It's snarling, it stabs and struts. The sound is less laid back than his recent root blues offerings, but still a highlight for me. Next one to highlight is track 6, which is Cypress Grove. This is a Skip Jones song. Accordion again molds in with the bluesy guitar to create that gritty, dirty blues anthem. Listen to Spinetti pummeling those drums as well. Then we move on to track 8, which is Stones in My Pathway, a Robert Johnson song. Here we have to go to church with the hand clap, squeeze box, and Wicked Sly, which is all in contents. The funkiest blues about kidney problems, however. Stones, kidney stones. Track 10, I'll Be Alright, some nice piano and slide guitar mesh into a sleepy slumber that images Southern States gospel roots. Clapton's guitar is precise and reminded me a little bit of Ry Cooder. So he's got his usual band with him. Henry Spinetti on drums. Dave Bronze, I don't know him, he's on bass. And Andy Fairweather-Lowe crops up on guitar, as does Paul Carrot on organ and vocals. And Chris Stanton is also in there, and a trio of background vocalists. Great album. I Still Do. Eric Clapton, my number 9. So to 8 then. This is Stranger to Stranger by Paul Simon. Arguably his best since Graceland. His reliably melodic songwriting, of course, is buoyed by his most adventurous arrangement in years. The music's experimental. It makes use of custom-made instruments by composer and music theorist Harry Partch. Don't know him. 3 of the songs are collaborations with an Italian electronic artist. First released for 5 years, of course, and it's described by a critic as an experimental album heavy on echo and rhythm that fuses electronic beats with African windward instruments, Peruvian drums, a gospel music quartet, and horns and synthesizers. Yeah, quite a lot there, I thought. Highlight a couple of tracks. The Werewolf starts us off, centers around a werewolf, also an angel of death, who's looking for victims. The song's origins came from Simon and his band experimenting with slowing down the tempo of a recording they made of the Peruvian percussion instrument cajon. This Indian instrument links in with the hand claps. Very interesting collaboration of these sounds, very ethnic. Wristbands next. It creates a narrative around a rock musician unable to gain entry into his own concert because he hasn't got the wristband required. An odd sound that reminds us of African tribal work with spitting horns. Next, Proof of Love and In the Garden of Eden. These are 2 songs that Simon puts on the album, and they're tributes to his lovely wife, musician Eddie Brickell. And finally, The Riverbank, which was inspired by a teacher that Simon personally knew was killed in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012. It's quite melancholic, of course, and it takes root The song took root when Simon made a visit to wounded veterans at Walter Reed Hospital. So there we are. That's my take on the Paul Simon album, and it's number 8 in the countdown. 2-7 then, and I've selected Asterisk Black Star, the last album by David Bowie. Visconti co-produced it with David, and the blend of jazz, codes, brutality, drama and alienation are all in here. It's a very sad listen, it has to be said, because it was released only days before Bowie's death from liver cancer. He apparently took inspiration from electronic groups such as Boards of Canada, as well as hip-hop artists such as Kendrick Lamar and Death Grips. The album contains re-recorded versions of 2 songs, Sue or In a Season of Crime, and 'Tis a Pity She Was a Whore, both of which were released in 2014. As I say, he died a couple of days after the release, and Visconti described the album as his intended swan song, a parting gift for his fans. At the 59th Annual Grammy Awards, the album won for Best Alternative Music Album and Best Engineered Album and Best Recording Package. I'm going to highlight a couple of the songs. I don't know this album very well. Did listen to it again the other day. I think it's fair to say that really all my choices on here could benefit from additional listens. But this is the problem when you've got such a vast collection. Anyway, the opener is an Asterisk Black Star, very trance-like at the intro with a luring sax that floats into the drum beat. It's very avant-garde jazz for sure, but quite difficult to get tuned into. Although it did remind me of Low a little. 4.5 minutes, David changes the vocal tact on the song, and the experimental tones continue as the melancholia descends over the horn rhythm. The next track I've chosen is Lazarus. Of course, there was a video released just after his death of this song, and the visuals of the artist show his approaching mortality. Prominently features Bowie appearing with a bandage and buttons sewn over his eyes, lying on a deathbed. Very traumatic listen and watch. The slow dirge-like hums are not unlike Awake, and it's a very powerful piece on this album. And the third one I wanted to highlight, Girl Loves Me, and here Bowie is yelping in the slang originated by the Clockwork Orange ultra-violent droogs. I've got an extract of the lyric that I just want to share to illustrate that point. You vidi at the China, chu Disney with the red rock, Libby lubing litzo fitzo, Devonchka watch a gabbles, Spatchka at the roost shop, split a dead from his deng deng, vidi at the China. Strange horny arrangements for sure. And maybe Bowie trying to link up with the late Stanley Kubrick. So that's my take on the final piece of material from the late, great David Bowie. And it's at number 7. So breezing on to number 6, this was the latest album in 2016 by Bonnie Raitt. It's called Dig in Deep, her 20th. In the early 70s, I was absolutely in love with Bonnie Raitt, alongside my desire to always be listening to Little Feat. They worked together quite frequently. And in those 70s periods, she insisted on recording live in the studio with her road band. Nothing's changed much. She's gone through various producers, and she's now with T-Bone Burnett. And he assisted in shaping the sound, often with great commercial success in the past. And this followed on from a 7-year silence from the powerful Slipstream, which I also like. This was co-written by Wright. In fact, she wrote or co-wrote 5 of the 12 songs, and the road band are in evidence again. Her signature slide guitar is back out front. It shines throughout the recording, and her earthy singing voice, disciplined and holds more emotional authority than ever before. It soars through a song collection balanced between rough, rowdy rockers and serene ballads. The material underscores the title. The theme in these songs: loss, betrayal, desire, regret, atonement, loneliness, resolution, and resonant. Covers of just about everything. A few tracks to peruse. Unintended Consequence of Love, the opener, is a funky flavoured R&B groover. Need You Tonight is a cover she does of the In Excess song. It's a blues version, and her voice and guitar is absolutely enchanting. And then Shaking, Shaking, Shakes. This is a cover of a Los Lobos song, a roadhouse boogie with teeth as rates slide and George Marinelli's counter lead snake around one another. And then the final cut, the coming round is going through. 5 minutes, a scorching political rocker that takes on the 1% and foretells coming karmic consequences. There are a couple of ballads after that, but I won't go into that. So there we have it. Dig it in deep, the latest from Bailey Ray in my 2016 top 10. So we're up to 5 now, and this is Fever Dream. It's by Ben Watt. Of course, he was half of Everything But the Girl. He's a singer, songwriter, author, and multi-instrumentalist. And this album continues his relationship with guitarist Bernard Butler, ex-Suede, of course. That began on the 2014 album Hendra. And here he adds Martin Ditcham and Rex Morrison on bass. And there's some cameos from guests MC Taylor of the rock band His Golden Messenger and Boston singer-songwriter Marisa Nadler. And this is a great album, probably the best music of his career. And his 2000, as I say, Hendra, released in 2014. His career resumed after 31 years collaborating with his wife, Tracy Thorn, in Everything But the Girl. Wow. Anyway, this album proves that Hendra wasn't just a one-off. He delivers 10 new songs about joy, conflict, renewals of love and ends of love of many kinds. It's self-produced, and the songs are delivered with grace and attentiveness in both sound and words. A few tracks to mosel over. The opener is called Gradually. Butler's distorted, stuttering electric guitars are involved with some sweet vocal harmonies and lyrics that references the first rush of love and the doubt that emerges as time passes. To quote, "No words are on your lips, we pass like sailing ships. Can I breach this? Where are the hours we missed? I don't know where I am or who I used to be." Next up, title track Fever Dream reflects the weight of everyday life on passion, has a jazzier feel with hand percussion and slippery guitar chords that recall, for me anyway, John Martin in his post-Grace and Danger period. And the third, Between Two Fires, a bit more up-tempo here, but Butler's guitar reminding us of how good he was in those early Suede days. And I've posted a link to this song for you to click on so you can watch it on YouTube. And finally, Running with the Front Runners. It's a dreamy bossa nova rhythm that slips effortlessly amid acoustic and electric guitars and has some sparse atmospheric keyboards. And I love it. Great album. The more you listen to it, the more you fall in love with this one. So check it out, Fever Dream by Ben Watt. So to number 4 now, and this is The Heart Speaks in Whispers. It's by an artist that I absolutely adore, Kareem Bailey Ray. And she was nominated for 3 Grammys for this album and 3 Brit Awards. Her debut record, way back when, in 2008 or 7, can't remember exactly, sold 4 million copies, and it vaulted her onto the music stage. Then her husband, Jason, died after an overdose of alcohol and methadone. He was in her band, and she had a creative hiatus and a moment of intense reflection. Then the follow-up, The Sea, very sullen, full of edgy sounds, expressing loss and despair, appeared 6 years ago in 2010. The Heart Speaks in Whispers. Well, this is rich in fresh ideas, full of emotional energy, which surge through the songs like electricity. Recorded in Leeds and LA, and the album features a number of notable musicians, including Pino Palladino from D'Angelo and The Who, James Gadson, who's worked with Marvin Gaye and Bill Withers, Marcus Miller, who worked with Davis, Miles that is, and Herbie Hancock, and then Esperanza Spalding and Moses Sumney, who worked with Beck, and they are involved in the vocals. Heart offers broad emotional range, and Ray seems at peace with her life now. The mood centres on spacious groves, and the lyrics seem lifted from Ray's diary. There's a heart-fluttering prose that lands softly on your ear. She sings about dreams of walking through figurative darkness in search of brighter days. It's got a wide-eyed folk soul moment, and it mixes with the more electrified and groove-orientated material. So I'm going to go through a few of the tracks. I listened to this album the other day, and I really fell in love with it again. It's been sadly neglected by yours truly. The opener is The Skies Will Break. Solo piano merges into a soulful flutter-like beat that lays down the soul feel. Ray's voice drips of emotional reawakening and joy. And there's a hint of those Tamla divas back in the 60s in the harmonies. Next, we've got Hey, I Won't Break Your Heart, track 2, a meditative ballad. Romance and the cautious optimism of a new relationship is covered here. It stinks of great production, accentuating each contribution, both instrumentally and vocally. And then we've got track 3, Been to the Moon, with some dazzling electro soul leads, which then give us a taste of trumpet, saxophone and flute, and it sounds absolutely great. Ray's pouting vocals mingle between these jazz segments as the rhythm struts its message. More respect here for those soul dearers from the past, and Sarita Light came to mind with me. And of course, when we think of Kareem Bailey Ray, I always think of Stevie Wonder, who is basically her mentor. Fingerprints all over this cut, Stevie's that is, with the orchestral jazz intro reminding us of Duke Ellington, and it comes to mind at the outro. And then the final song I want to refer to is track 6, which is Green Aphrodisiac. Spalding's on backing vocals here, and it's beautiful. It's very much Stevie Wonder style, with the keys are joined by Ray's childlike vocals. And as the lyric paints an idyllic picture of wonderment, the horns ooze into the palette with that distinctive lead guitar moment. It reminded me of Superwoman from Miles of My Mind. And the shuffle beat is pure hypnosis. It's a standout track. I could go on and on and on, but we've already done 4 minutes on this video, so we better move on to the top 3. So up to 3, and I've chosen Lemonade by Beyonce. It's her 6th album. This was huge, but I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but I've since got into it, and this is a class act. 2 Grammys, a 65-minute film accompanied this great piece of work, and it was very much honoured by the Black Sisterhood with the presence of Warsan Shea, Serena Williams, and the mothers of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown and Eric Garner, all three of those young men perished as a result of the racist actions of the police force in the United States. Its title, Lemonade, came from a popular proverb that Beyonce was given by her grandmother-in-law. And a critical moment, perhaps, in her creative career. She uses the platform, though, to demand contrition from her adulterous partner, asserts her excellence, reflects upon the bonds with men in her life and their relationship with other women. And it makes us wonder if her trust can be earned back. Powerful message in this music, singing superb, variety of genres, including pop, reggae, blues, rock, hip-hop, soul, funk, touch Americana as well, country, gospel, electronics. It's got it all. And featured vocals by Kendrick Lamar, James Blake, Jack White, and The Weeknd. Just a little taste of some of the tracks. Opener is Pray You Catch Me. Gospel soul with strings creates a soothing tone with some gorgeous violins on the outro. I move to track 3 next, Don't Hurt Yourself. This has Jack White on bass, and it starts with Beyonce announcing Who the Fuck Do You Think It Is? Hugely energetic emotionally, and the drums actually hurt to listen to. And then number 10, track 10 is Freedom. Here Kendrick Lamar emerges. It's a rock sort of track, really, that's added to the palette of the album with march-like beats. It's got an arena rallying call feel, superb, and Lamar's rap addition is near the outro. And then the final cut I refer to is Formation, which was the first single. It's a comprehensive appreciation of self-love to survive being an African American in the US. It's a success for sure. Raunchy lyric about naughtiness. So there we have it. That's my take on my number 3 choice in my top 10 for 2016. It's Lemonade, and it's by Beyonce Knowles. Okay, 2 left. At number 2 is Strange Little Birds by Garbage. 4 years on from Not Your Kind of People. I love this band. No surprises to see it in my top 10. Continues to draw a conscious bridge to those heyday moments in the 90s when they emerged. Each track has a sort of a feeling of trickery, showiness, and able to add polish to the sounds. It's very lush. There's dark waves of sounds with those clever pop hooks. And of course, at the front is Shirley Manson, and she continues to tackle sociological or personal issues in her lyrics. Her voice soars above the sounds or is subsumed by the washes of throbbing guitars. The album sounds fresh and similar together. Manson and her bandmates Duke Erickson, Steve Marker and Butch Vig are cohesive with those explosive rhythms, seething, surging and brutal. The album obsesses over romanticizing and even celebrates sorrow. So I'm going to have a little look now at the tracks that I've highlighted. The only problem is I've just lost my page, so bear with me while I find the details. I have to do this sort of thing because my memory recall is so poor. Okay, opening track, Sometimes. Morbid strings adorn this, and the piano prepares for Manson's vocals, which is on top of a very dark gothic theme. Second up is Empty. This was a single, and Manson moans and quakes atop Vig and Erickson's Steel Groove. Sounds like an outtake from the debut 20 years back. It's fiery and heavy. And then my third count, Even Though Our Love Is Doomed. Here she soberly proclaims the song's sentiment to deliver a message of hope not fear. Even though our stars are crossed, you're the only thing worth fighting for. You're the only thing worth dying for. That's what Shirley wants us to know. And this is an album that I need to listen to a bit more. But it was good enough for my number 2 in my countdown for 2016. Get to listen to it. It's a gem. So, what albums hit the top of the pops? Well, probably no surprise to people who know me. I've chosen 4 by Santana. Very much a nostalgic return to those heady 70s day. Carlos Santana decided to reunite all the band members from the third album back in the early 70s. So in comes singer and keyboardist Greg Rowley. Neil Schon, Santana's teen protege, is back on guitar. Mike Carabello on percussion. And, of course, drummer Mike Shreve. 45 years since that third album, but you wouldn't believe it. This absolutely tremendous album. And I'm going to highlight a few tracks. It opens with Yambu, a real live feel to this with funky Latino rhythms, which are smooth as silk. Shake It is track 2. More blistering guitar work here, and trademark Rowley keyboards with that heavy, thunderous salsa percussive riff. And then probably the standout, and I'm only doing 3 tracks, is Suanos, which is 5 minutes. It boasts the atmospherics of the 72 album Caravanserai, the last project to feature Rowley and Sean. It's simply romantically enchanting, and there's a great Spanish acoustic guitar break. Get to listen to this. This is 5-star class. It's 4, and it's by Santana, and it's my number 1 for 2016.